Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have none of my jewelry on. I just realized we're gonna roll with it because are we gonna roll with it? I feel naked. I gotta go put it on. Hold on a second. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing my June reading recap. Now, June was actually a good month for me. May was really rough. I did not feel like reading at all. And I've had like little spurts of that throughout this month, but for the most part, we are back. We are not in a reading slump anymore, and it has been fantastic. So I did read 9 books this month, and I DNF'd 1 book that's not included in the 9. Going through the list here, I read 2 graphic novels, I read 1 fantasy, which was also a reread, I read 4 romances, and then 2 literary fiction novels. And then the DNF that I had was also a romance. We're just gonna jump in. Majority of these books I did read on my Kindle, but I do have 2 physical books here to talk about. So we're just gonna jump right in. First book that I read was Meet Me at the Lake by Carley Fortune, and I adore Carley Fortune's writing. All of her books have been a 4-star or above for me, I believe, and I just am so obsessed with them. They're so summery. They are a perfect book to read by the pool or if you're at the beach. They are just so summery. I love that aspect of all of her books. This one follows Fern and Will, and they met 10 years ago or so, and they spent 24 hours together. They had like a spark and nothing happened at the time, but they agreed to meet up a year later, and Will did not show up. So time's passed, and it's been, like I said, about 10 years, and they run back into each other, and Fern is currently running her mom's like family lakeside resort cabin situation, and it's not what she saw herself doing whatsoever, and so she's kind of like going through that as well. Her mom recently passed, which is why she is running the resort, and there's just a lot of different elements here. This is, I would say, the heaviest one of her book. It does focus a lot on grief and pulling yourself out of that when you lose someone. The only gripe I have about this book is that the third act conflict was a little annoying and felt like it was just kind of thrown in there for some sort of, like mix-up, and I hate when books do that, so that would be my one critique. But I did love both of the main characters, and I really did feel their chemistry, so I gave this one a 4-star. Then I read Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, and this book, it is a graphic novel if you don't know. It follows Nick and Charlie. They're both in high school, and they become unlikely friends, I would say. Nick is a rugby jock, he's popular, and then you have Charlie, who is a little bit more quiet, and he's more studious, and he likes music, and he's openly gay, and they become friends, and then their relationship progresses to more than that, and it's just such a sweet, wholesome, like feel-good, happy book. I did give this one 4 stars. Then I reread A Court of Mist and Fury, and this guy is so well loved now. I don't even know if you can tell, but like when it sits on my bookshelf, it looks like this because I have just like tabbed so many things and underlined so many things. This guy did not disappoint. It was another 5-star upon rereading it, and I just this story is everything to me. I'm so obsessed with it, and it's so fun to reread because it just takes me back to the time when I was reading it for the first time, and I'm having all those same feelings. Like, I'm getting giddy, I'm on the edge of my seat, I'm like experiencing it again, but it's taking me back to when I did, and it was just like such a nostalgic feel, and I just I can't say enough good things about this series. And I will say, I'm a really fast reader, and a lot of times I don't really retain a lot of things as I'm reading because I'm going so fast, and if I slow down, I'm just a fast reader, okay? So for series like this or other intricate, specifically fantasy, I would say, those kinds of series, it's amazing for me to reread because then I am picking up on the world building way more and not just vibing and reading about fairy smut. I just think it's really good for my brain because now I'm okay, yes, now all of these pins are connecting for me, and I'm this makes sense. One thing, and it's not a bad thing, it's just I misremembered. I thought this was the smuttiest of all of the books, and I think I might be wrong. I remembered there being more smut in this, but there is, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot about emotional connection, and there's a lot of tension. It reminded me of Fourth Wing in that way. Like, there's just so much tension, but I still loved it. I think A Court of Wings and Ruin, it's on my desk over there. That's what I'm going to be reading next. I think that one might be a little bit more smutty, and the way this one leaves off, I enjoyed this so much when I was rereading it. I was having the time of my life. I read this so quickly. I immediately wanted to pick up the next book. But how this ends, and I'm not spoiling it, don't worry, it just, it took me back to reading it for the first time, and I was like, God, like, it just makes me angry, so I haven't picked that up yet, because I know what I'm going into. So, yeah, but 5 stars across the board. This is the best series ever. Then I read Love Interest by Claire Gilmore, and I gave this one 3 stars. This one is a forced proximity workplace romance. They're kind of like nemesis, that sounds right. They're at odds when they meet each other, and you kind of have all of those different dynamics playing together. So it takes place in Manhattan. You have Casey and you have Alex. Casey is trying to get away from Manhattan. She is wanting to, like, kill her job so that she can go kill it, like she wants to be good at it, go to London so she can be relocated over there. And Alex comes into the workplace. He and Casey interview for the same job, not the London one, a different one. And Alex, is actually the son of a board member. So he gets the job, but Casey and him have to work closely together. The banter in this book is really good, and their, like, connection, I didn't feel 100%, like, I wasn't, like, kicking my feet or, like, giddy or, like, feeling it in my bones the way I do with, like, an Elsie Silver book, but it was really sweet, and the banter definitely, like, amped that up for me. It was cute, it was easy, it was fun. I don't think it's particularly summery, so you could read it any time of year. I will say this would be a perfect romance for anyone who doesn't want the graphic, detailed smut. It's, like, insinuated in this book, but you're not getting the details. So if that's you, I would definitely look into this one. Then I read the second, Heartstopper. Again, this is a graphic novel series. I think there's 5 of them. I might have just pulled that out of my ass, but I feel like there's 5. And this one, again, is just following Nick and Charlie's story. Their relationship is progressing. They're growing as individuals. It's just so sweet. These books are just so, like, lighthearted and happy. And I love reading them in between, like, I read, obviously, A Court of Mist and Fury. And then this was kind of like a little palette cleanser. Super cute. Loved it. And it's great to kind of break up your heavier, thicker, more intricate stories. I gave this one 3 stars. Then I read Swan Song by Ellen Hildebrand. I gave this one 4.5 stars. This is Ellen Hildebrand's newest release. It is her last book in the Nantucket series, and it did not disappoint, let me tell you. It reminded me a lot of Hotel Nantucket and The 5-Star Weekend, and it has, like, a mystery element to it, which I always talk about in her books. I love that you follow all these different people, but I love when she has something that's kind of like the center point that's a mystery, because otherwise it feels more like a character study. I don't know if that makes any sense. I will say you don't necessarily have to, but I would recommend reading The Castaways by Ellen Hildebrand before reading this book, because the main character and many of the side characters are about the families that are in The Castaways. So if you want, like, kind of a before how everything gets set up and why certain people are mentioned and, like, the dynamics within the group, I would read that one first. But just to give you a little synopsis, it starts with Ed Capanash. He is the chief of the Nantucket Police Department, and he finally decides he's gonna retire, and then, of course, shit hits the fan, and there's, like, a house fire that's happening. There's a missing girl who also happens to be his daughter's friend, and he's like, I'm not retiring, I gotta help with this. And you have so many points of view, which is so Ellen Hildebrand, and I love it so much. So you have Ed's daughter Casey, you have Ed, you have the people whose house burnt down, you have the girl who went missing. Like, you have so many people that are all interacting, and like I said, in The Castaways you get to know a lot of Ed and a lot of the other characters way more. Like, you get kind of their backstory, and then in this you're like, oh, makes sense that so-and-so's acting this way, or like, oh, there's that person, I know her. And it's super cute. I know that she also has 2 or 3 other books that are part of this like specific, I think it's called the Nantucket series. There's 4, including Swan Song. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's right. But all of her Nantucket books all kind of tied together. So like Golden Girl was tied into this one. It like came up, which was super cute. So I think this was like a perfect last Nantucket book because she truly tied all the pieces together. You have like Blonde Sharon, who is mentioned all the time in her books as like the town gossip, and you get her point of view in this book, and you get more of her like personality, which I really, really enjoyed. It's mystery, it's a beach read, it's friendship, it's romance, it's family, it's everything that you need for a perfect novel. I'm obsessed. I gave it a 4.5. Now I'm like, should I give it a 5? Next, I read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This one, she kind of prefaced at the beginning of the book, it's going to be different than many of her other books. I've only read one of her other books. I read Love Theoretically, I believe. And this one, she was like, hey, it's more of a physical romance. It's a little bit more erotica than it is emotional, in-depth kind of romance. And I do agree with that. However, there is emotional chemistry and there is an emotional and like deep intellectual side of how the main characters connect. So it's not just reading smut, it's not just erotica. So if you're nervous about going into it, I wouldn't shy away from it necessarily if that's the only reason. That being said, I have seen a lot of mixed reviews. I really like this book. I gave it 4 stars. You're following Rue and you're following Eli, I think? Yes. So Rue doesn't really connect with a lot of people. She's very, like, reclusive, I would say. And so she uses dating apps to have one-night stands, and she truly only sees them one time, and then she's like, deuces, don't talk to you ever again, don't talk to me, all the things, right? Okay. Eli and her meet because of this. They meet on the dating app. They get together. They're going to have a one-night stand, and then some other things happen. They don't end up sleeping together, and then she goes to work the next day. Lo and behold, he is there. Him and his friends have a company that bought the loan that her company is using. I don't know the right verbiage. Anyway, he's like coming in and like kind of taking control of where she works. And that rubs her the wrong way, but they have this chemistry. They have this like vibe, this spark between them. They can't deny it. So they end up seeing each other again, and then it just kind of grows from there. I don't really think that's a spoiler. I feel like all romances, you know that they have a happy ending. So this one's fun because you have the forced proximity, you have this like undeniable chemistry and like the workplace romance in a way, but it's also so much deeper than that. You have friendship and you have family and you have a lot of backstory that you get from their childhoods that made them the way that they are, specifically Rue. And I just think this book is just really sweet and it's really realistic. It is, though, very smutty. So just know that. The next book I read was Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. And Kristen Hanna is just the best. She's the GOAT. I love her writing so much. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I don't know if I already said that. She just knocks it out of the park every freaking time. I was sobbing by the end of this book. Sam came in the living room and was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I just finished my book and it was just really sad. So this follows Tully and Kate, and they become unlikely friends as teenagers. So Tully is very like outspoken. Her family life is very different than Kate's, who's very like traditional. She's a little bit more quiet. She has siblings. Tully's an only child, and they become friends at the bus stop, and then you follow their lives from that point on. So you have multiple decades. You have the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. And it's just such a beautiful and realistic story about female friendship and like friendship just between two people in general, because you have all of the, and especially when it like spans for that long of a time period, decades and decades of friendship. And it just shows like the ups and downs, how, you know, some people view things one way and some people view things another way, and intentions kind of get lost or like misconstrued, miscommunication, all of that. And it also reminds me a lot of, if you guys follow Tinks on TikTok or Instagram, she talks about the fatal flaw theory, and it's essentially with your friends, they all have one fatal flaw. So maybe, you know, so for an example, my best friend, her fatal flaw is that she's time blind. Like, she does not know time at all, and she loses things constantly. That would be her fatal flaw. Now, sometimes with a fatal flaw, it's enough for you to be like, I can't be friends with this person. but the theory is essentially every friend has it, and you just either have to accept it or not, and then you're not friends. Anywho, with this book, I feel like it ties to it because Tully has a fatal flaw in the sense that she doesn't know how to apologize, and you just see how Kate has to deal with that, and then also Tully's point of view of like why she is the way that she is. It's not just that she's an asshole and doesn't apologize. There is like reasoning, and then Kate either has to, you know, accept it or not, and it's just like so realistic, like I said. And it also touches a lot on the female human experience in general. You get a lot of, you know, like insecurities in relationships and in dating and what that looks like, and then, you know, comparison between women and motherhood, and specifically your relationship with your daughter. It's just a really like all-encompassing good book for any woman to read. It also talks a lot about mental health and like postpartum. Kristen Hanna never fails to make me laugh and like swell with pride and happiness, but then rip my heart out and stomp on it, and I'm sobbing by the end. Like, she's amazing. Last book I read is Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan, or Monaghan. I'm not sure how to say her name. I gave this one between a 3.5 and a 4. I'm kind of teetering. I was leaning towards 4, and then I started thinking about the things I didn't like about the book, and now I'm leaning towards a 3.5. I don't know. You're following Allie, and she's in the midst of finalizing her divorce. Her and her husband Pete have been separated for a year, and now they're finally going to file and finalize their divorce. Pete is also the father of her kids. They have 3 kids together. So Allie's at the dog park one day, and she meets Ethan. And they have a spark. They have chemistry. They run into each other a couple more times. Come to find out, he is her best friend's little brother. The story is super cute. It's very lighthearted. It's very summery. The setting was everything. Like, it was so New England coastal summer. If you need that vibe, this is 100% it. And it's another book that if you're not into the detailed smut, this would be great for you, because it doesn't go into detail. It insinuates it's happening, but it doesn't, you know, go into any of the nitty gritty. That sounded really gross to say in that context. Now, the things I didn't like about it. One, Pete you're not supposed to like, so that's great. He is just an asshole, don't like him at all. But the thing I really didn't like is that Allie didn't stick up for herself in a lot of situations, and it was very just like annoying. And that's a personal thing, because to me, when I read that, I'm like, just say something. Like, it makes me angry, because I am someone that's just like out and will say whatever I'm feeling, which isn't necessarily the greatest, but she like keeps things in, and it's just like, okay, like that's fine. And I just can't relate to that in this situation. In relationships, I can relate to that with family and friends, because I do think I'm a people pleaser in certain areas of my life, but when it comes to relationships, I am just like, but if someone's making me feel some type of way, I'm putting it out there. And I also 150% got the ick reading about Ethan not teaching Allie. Teaching Allie to skateboard is like fine. I'm just getting the ick thinking about like a 40-year-old man skateboarding. I don't know what it is, but I read it and was like, am I going to DNF this book because of this? If this is going to be a cornerstone in this book that is frequently brought up, I cannot do it, because I'm picturing like a Austin from Summer House, or a Austin from Southern Charm, Kyle from Summer House skateboarding, and I'm like, no, I can't. No. Overall, though, it was a really cute book. It was really sweet. It was empowering to see Allie at the end stand up for herself and kind of find herself and, you know, fall into her own after her divorce, when she's like shedding this horrible marriage and kind of coming into who she is and who she wants to be. And contrary to what I typically would say, I did really enjoy the kids in this book. They were realistic. They were like comedic relief, and they were like sweet. Like, there were very sweet moments, and then there were also a lot of moments with Allie just being a mom and how she handled situations with her kids and being there for them and that type of thing, because her oldest daughter is going into middle school, or is in middle school, so things are like shaking up there. If you know, you know. If you're a girl and you've been through middle school, it's the worst. And it's so interesting, because if I would have read this book like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I would have related to the daughter more because she's having issues with her friends and her friend group and that whole thing. I would have related to her, and I wouldn't have even thought about the mom's perspective. But now reading it at the age that I'm at, I'm like, wow, that's how I would have handled it if I was a mom. Or, you know, like, how would I have changed that approach? Or, like, banking the information to be like, okay, when I run into this eventually, I need to know how to handle it, and this is sitting right with me. It's just so weird. Like, it makes me feel old 100%. And then the DNF that I did have for this month was Summer Reading by Jen McKinley. I'm not sure how to say that. But this one I got like 19% of the way through. I was reading it on my Kindle. And it's about a girl who is moving to, I think it's Martha's Vineyard, to stay there with her little brother while her parents, her dad and her stepmom, are going on vacation, or they're leaving, and she's staying in Martha's Vineyard with her teenage little brother. Don't know any names. That's essentially the premise. And her teenage little brother is into robotics, and he's a little bit more quiet, and he's very studious. The main character is just like shitting on him for like wanting to go to robotics camp, and she's basically just making fun of him for wanting to go to robotics camp and not be like doing typical summer things like riding your bike or hanging out with your friends. And it was just like, dude, you're in your late 20s, I'm pretty sure. They had like at least a 10-year age gap. You're in your late 20s, and you're making fun of your teenage brother for doing something that he loves. Like, immature. I was like, I hate this main character. I don't want to read this anymore. It could have gotten better. I don't know. Because she's like, oh, I felt bad immediately. It's like, yeah, well, you're the adult. You shouldn't have done it to begin with. You shouldn't have said anything to begin with. It's mean. And, like, she's never had a relationship with her little brother before. Like, they're very estranged, essentially. They, like, cross paths at holidays, and that's it. So, it's, like, I didn't like it. Don't plan on going back to it. That is everything that I read for the month of June. Let me know what you guys read down below. If there's anything that I need to look into based off of these books and how I rated them, let me know. If you don't follow me already on all my social medias, that's linked down below. Don't forget to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to what? Subscribe. I already said that. Okay. And I will see you guys in my next one.